I call myself a world citizen. It's about bringing the golden age of social networking back, where it's a social network. It's not about social media. It's not influencers. It's about community.
Okay, so it's like the anti-Facebook.
Orkut was like the only successful product that was like built within Google. I was a Google engineer when I built it. So if you think about social media today, it's really toxic.
Have you watched Emily in Paris?
So I have a lot of friends who actually are from Paris.
Yeah.
And they say Paris is nothing like what you see in Emily in Paris. Connection is what makes us human. Connection is in our DNA, and that connection transcends time and culture.
Welcome to Venture Ahead. It's a series of podcasts recorded by IE University. These were recorded in Porto Alegre in Brazil at the 4th edition of the South Summit. We got to speak to people who had done keynotes, former IE students. We got to speak to people who were on panels, people that we just met and found interesting. Do this at each of the South Summits because it's a great opportunity to talk to some of the people. So, thank you for getting this far. Listen to the end and let us know what you think. Hi there, this is Joe Haslam, professor at IE Business School, and we're here at Porto Alegre in Brazil. I never get tired of saying I'm here in Porto Alegre in Brazil, and it's absolutely fabulous to have the opportunity to get the speakers to talk about a little. I mean, being on stage is obviously has its own pressures and things like that, but when you get speakers off stage, they can get a little more personal and intimate in terms of the things that they wanted to say. So much more of a conversation than a presentation to a big room. So quite unbelievably, and I was super excited when I heard that I was going to be speaking with you, because I obviously knew of your product before I knew of your person. So it's fantastic to be with you today. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me. The pleasure is all mine.
So, I mean, maybe just, I don't know how much you want to go into. Do you have one of these kind of like little boy in a small town in Turkey stories, or like where did it all begin?
I call myself a world citizen. I was born in Turkey, but I grew up in Germany. So I was a Turkish brunette in a German classroom full of blondes.
Okay.
And later the immigrant in America with the funny German accents.
Yeah.
So my whole life, I alternated between being a natural extroverted and burying myself in computer science, learning how to program when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And because of how my parents moved around all the time, making new friends became a necessity.
Yeah.
And being exposed to different cultures created a new sense of belonging and identity. I think that also inspired my interest in building communities and technology.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is very consistent, right? I mean, in a sense, that's a perfect narrative, which is to say that, you wanted to connect people and be social and have friends and things like that. So what was it like going to Silicon Valley? That must have been pretty amazing, right? So many people all over the world, dream of living in Silicon Valley. It's like the Hollywood if you're a film star so what was it like to be there?
There's so much technology and innovation happening. And one of the reasons why Silicon Valley is so successful in entrepreneurship is because of the networks they have.
Okay. But living in San Francisco, did it feel really different, or were you mostly working? Please tell me you weren't mostly working. Please tell me you were able to have some fun.
Actually, I work a lot. I love what I do. And when I'm not working, I love to spend time with my friends and connect.
Very interesting. So, I'm going to get you to retell a story you've told 1,000 times, but how did Orkut get its name? I mean, it's your name, but I mean, there's a funny story behind that. From what I heard, is it true that Marissa sort of insisted on it rather than it's your idea?
I'm not a jerk. I would never name it after myself.
Yeah.
So it was a 20% project at Google. The internal code name was E10, like a paradise, a wonderful place for people to get together.
Okay.
And we tried to get the domain name, but we couldn't get eden.com. And Lera and Sergey wanted to launch the website right away. And then I had a meeting with Eric Schmidt, the CEO at the time, and Marissa Meyer, and they insisted on it to be launched as orkut.com. I already had the domain. It was a 5-letter unique word, and I was the only person who worked on it. I was the engineer, the designer. I even drove to the data centers to set up the servers.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how did you, I mean, it was famously Orkut took off in Brazil more than in other countries. Why was that the case? What was interesting? What did Brazil like so much about your product?
Actually, it really took off in US, Japan, in many countries. But as soon as we launched, we had massive scalability issues because we didn't expect to grow so fast. And the technology was based on Windows. So it was like Microsoft SQL Server and .NET servers. And I even went to like Redmond, Washington, talked to Microsoft folks to see if we can scale it. And they said it's not possible to scale it using our infrastructure. So we had to rebuild everything from scratch using Java, C++, Google internal tools. And that process took an entire year. And during that time, we lost some of our territories like
Japan and the USA, yeah.
interestingly, in Brazil, it didn't have an impact. And one of the theories is that the bandwidth was a lot lower in Brazil, and people were using a lot of like dial-up modems. And as a result, they weren't impacted with the scalability issues we had with Orkut.com.
Okay. And I mean, and of course, you've made your home in Brazil now, is that right? Or where do you live now?
I live in San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just here to visit us. So can you talk to us about like people who kind of criticize Google for misunderstanding social? They've obviously built a PageRank and it's been a fantastic company, but they've had Google Plus and they've had Buzz and Orkut. They don't seem to get it. No,
fascinating because Orkut was like the only successful product that was like built within Google. I was a Google engineer when I built it.
Yeah.
And at one point, it had as many page views as Google search.
Wow.
But I feel like it never got the love it deserved because it wasn't a part of their core mission, because Google's core mission is organizing the world's information, making it searchable.
Yeah.
It's more about like enterprise. And even at our peak, we had maybe like 30 people.
Yeah.
And we were competing with companies like Facebook who had like tens of thousands of employees. And even though we had such a limited team, it took Facebook like 6 years to catch up with us in Brazil.
Yeah.
And it's like this huge missed opportunity that has a lot to do with execution and company politics.
Yeah.
And then Google decided that social was important. And the company got fixated as using Google Plus as a way to integrate social into every single product. So into like photos and search and Gmail. And as a result, the team who was in charge of Google Plus, they shut down all social products, including Orkut.com.
Yeah.
My view on it was like social has to be its own separate brand. You don't want to mix like enterprise work with your like friends and like romantic partners and everything that's happening in your social life.
Yeah.
So it was like wrong like strategy.
Yeah. I mean, that was what they tried to do with Google Plus and the circles. That was sort of what they were trying to do, right?
The circle was like interesting, actually.
Yeah.
The product was so unintuitive. If I want to send you a message, I had to create a circle, put you in the circle, and put the message in the circle, and then you would get the message.
Okay.
And like nobody like cared about circles, and it wasn't actually like a circle. It was more like a shopping list because you don't see who's in my circle, and if you can't see who's in my circle, it's not something that's shared.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, like circles never took off as a feature and was like the main like differentiator of the platform.
Okay. And is Orkut still even live anymore, or has it been taken offline, or is it still?
So Google shut it down.
Yeah.
10 years after, and then they deleted all the data because of like privacy security concerns.
So it doesn't exist at all. Wow, that's that's almost sad.
It exists in our hearts.
Yes, which is in our hearts forever. Okay, that's super interesting. And I mean, what was it like? I mean, there must have been an element of celebrity in it, like getting recognized and things like that. Did you have like people writing to you and all this, or did people just not know that there was a person behind the product? What was it like?
As soon as we launched, we had so many incredible stories from people. It's users who reconnected with old friends, long distance lover who stayed connected over borders.
Yeah.
Or like lost souls who finally found their family.
Yeah.
And it's all these amazing stories of strangers that gave me hope that social networking can create a better world, change us for the better, and make us whole. And when I meet people in Brazil, like it happened to me like multiple times today, for instance, where No, a lady walked at me and said, "Yeah, I met my husband on Orkut, right? And we have like 3 kids because of you." And all those like stories are very inspiring.
So, I mean, what's your own view on social networking? I mean, do you think it's like mostly good but a little bad, or mostly bad but a little good?
I think we cannot blame technology because technology is not what's evil. We need to use technology more humanely and more wisely. And today, if you look at who has like power, it's like these giant corporations, right? Like Meta is a really good example, who owns like Facebook, Instagram, and they maybe at one point they cared about connection and community and the user base, but it's very clear that now they don't. They only care about growth and revenue.
Yeah.
And they knew that, for instance, on Instagram, the content was creating massive body image issues on 13-year-old girls, and they were committing suicide. They don't even think about it,
And very often, because it's algorithms, the algorithms don't know the difference. But it's all a question of, do you put your best people to drive growth, or do you put your best people to stop bad things from happening? And that's the decision.
Exactly. And like Facebook, like you're like setting the teenage brain to figure out how to make social media addictive. It's almost like trying to figure out how to push like drugs on young kids whose brains are just like forming,
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And they say, of course, that they had all the research, that Facebook know this, that
They knew, they knew.
But they didn't want to do anything. Okay, and what are you working on now? What's, you're still a young man,
I'm building a new platform. It's going to be my, so I created Club Nexus at Stanford. I created Insert before Stanford alumni. And I created Orkut.com.
Yeah.
I had a journey with Hello. And now I'm creating, I guess, my 5th social network. And it's optimized for positivity, community, and connection.
Okay, so it's like the anti-Facebook, it's the sort of like, you find that a lot in business cycles, that everyone goes in one direction and then it almost goes too far, to the end, as they say, it goes to the end. And then there's a sort of a reaction back in the other direction, So what you want to try and do, I guess you're going for things like authenticity and talk to me about how you're designing the product.
It's about bringing the golden age of social networking back, where it's a social network. It's not about social media. It's not influencers. It's about communities. And it's all about authentic sharing. It's not about filtering. It's about creating places where people can be vulnerable and not punished for it. It's about being real.
Okay. And how are, I'm interested in getting into the product detail, the design process. So how are you going to do this? How are you going to design a product? What's different about engaging with it versus how you would have engaged with Instagram or Snapchat?
So when you design, you make decisions, right? You make product decisions, technical decisions, UX decisions, engineering decisions. And if you choose connection over clicks, if you choose connection over and over again, you end up building something different. You end up rewriting rules of social networking, creating something new, something deep, something that's not just built with computer code, but also with care, compassion, and common humanity. And it has a lot to do with how you design the experience and how you lead the community.
Okay.
So if you think about social media today, it's really toxic, but it's not toxic because people are toxic. It's because of how the algorithms surface that kind of like how
they drive it,
anger, misinformation, polarization, and a lot of like envy. And you miss out on like the most important stuff, and you're just seeing things that are shown to you because it keeps you engaged.
Okay, so how does the design process work? I mean, when you enter, how do you elicit those feelings as opposed to the other feelings?
So my background is interesting, actually. I started as a computer scientist. And then at Stanford, I ended up being a data scientist. I did a PhD in databases. And then after I became a social scientist. And a lot of things like happiness, authenticity, connection can be measured quantitatively. And now with AI, we can also measure it qualitatively. So you can look at an image, for instance, and figure out if like the people on the image are happy or sad. We can look at the text that's typed and do like natural language analysis and look at the sentiment, the authenticity of the text. And you have a lot of like signals that you can use to optimize. And if you do the right type of like engineering, and if you have the right set of like intentions, you can optimize for positivity and connection.
Okay. And then what's your model for this? Are you going to raise venture capital, or how are you going to run the company? Is this going to be like a 100-person company? What kind of company is this going to be?
So it's like fundraising is involved, and then it's starting with like a core team of people.
Okay.
And you don't need hundreds of people. You need maybe like 10 to 20 people, because a lot of like the infrastructure scaling challenges are solved right now. You can just use AWS or Google Cloud and have like tens or hundreds of users. And the challenges we have today are very different than the challenges we had in the past.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it must be funny when you meet people probably, who've never heard of Orkut or, know anything about it. Like, I mean, if you think it's like talking about the Vietnam War or something like that, people have never heard of it. Like, so you probably, one of the things about Silicon Valley, and I lived there for a while, is that nobody cares about your past. Everyone kind of cares about your future. So you will have to go in and convince them that like the future is going to be amazing. The past is whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that really struck me. I would start conversations by talking about like things I'd built in the past and companies, and people kind of didn't really care about that. They were like, what are you doing now? And why is that going to be amazing?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily true, because they really care about the team. And when you look at the team, they look at what you have done in the past. So that's a big part of it. But obviously, it also really matters what you're building in the future.
The investors certainly care about the past, but
they also really care about the team.
Yeah. How do you get them to come work with you?
Oh, I think like it has an amazing potential to create a better world in society. And I believe and know that there are really good people out there who want to change the world, who want to fix like loneliness and anxiety and depression and like mental health issues. And there's no better way to do that with the help of technology, with the right team and product. And you can really make a difference. I think like Gen Z is very interesting, because they are longing for the small serendipitous connections that algorithms cannot create. And they actually stop like using dating apps because they want to meet people in person. And those are the ones that are restart for connection, because they didn't have like Orkut when they were growing up, right? And they weren't able to build those connections and relationships. And when I look at the world today, I feel like it's on like fire. I mean, look at what's happening in America. It's insane. Like what's happening in Ukraine. And people are so angry and hateful and unkind. And you even notice that when you're driving on a freeway, you're trying to change lanes. And when the people notices that, instead of giving the right of way, they speed up so you can change lanes. I'm like, there's no reason to be mean and rude to a stranger. And I'm noticing that like all around the world, people are not as nice and kind anymore. And a lot of that actually stems from like social media and like how much time we spend on it. And for me, I think like what defines me is my passion for connection and technology, and it's the intersection of technology and connection that makes my heart sing, that makes me who I am. And I truly believe that we can use the internet, the powers of like social networking, to bring people together and create a better humanity. And there's never been a time, where this was more important than ever before.
Sure. And are you headquarters is going to be in Silicon Valley? Did you think of like building it somewhere else to try and not be influenced by Silicon Valley?
We would have like 2 offices, one in America, one outside of America,
Yeah.
At the beginning at least.
Yeah. And where's the other one going to be? Where's the other office?
Maybe it will be Brazil.
There you go. Well, there's certainly there's a lot of love in Brazil. I'll go find it. Whereas
a lot of amazing like talent in Brazil too.
Yeah. So I guess the other question then is, I mean, having had some success, I mean, do you think you've lost your drive, or do you think you're more hungry than ever?
I'm more hungry than ever because like we need to fix society, humanity, and the best way to fix it is through social networking. Because if you look at like the average like teenager, they spend like 2 to 7 hours on TikTok,
Yeah.
and like how do you fix that behavior? But navigate them to use healthier platforms, and we really need to do something about this. And if you look at people who have tremendous power, right, who can actually influence the world, they don't care about what's happening, right? They don't care if they're killing like tens of thousands of teenagers.
Yeah.
They don't care if there's like a loneliness epidemic. And a really good example is like the most popular social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. They really don't care if the world is on fire.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to have like alternatives, because connection is what makes us human. Connection is in our DNA, and like connection transcends time and cultures, and connection is what binds us together as a society, and it also connection is what creates friendships and communities and also gives us meaning. If you think about it, we are who we are in relationship to the people around us. And now like we have a lonely society and people don't have like friends. And if you don't have friends, who are you? You are like social media. You know many people, but nobody truly knows you. Or maybe you're an influencer. You are seen by millions, but nobody really understands you. And for me, that's like the deepest kind of loss, when you cannot connect, because like connection is about like survival.
There's so many people, like, I don't know whether you're a fan of reading like Russian literature or French literature, but there's so much about that, you know, stuff from the 16th and 17th century. And it is essentially all about the human need to connect.
Yeah,
you know,
I read a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I know about like Brazil and Turkey, right? It's a lot less transactional. It's a lot more real. And like they say in Brazil, you talk to someone for like 5 minutes and then they become your best friend.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, not to get into stereotypes and stuff.
No, I'm not stereotyping.
You know, I actually, the older I get, or the more I do think stereotypes kind of, you know, there's a thing about them, you know, like you know, you see, like, have you watched Emily in Paris? Have you? Yes. Okay. So we could talk about Emily in Paris, you know, but like that whole thing about, you know, selling to the big company, and then they go to the town in Italy, you know, and they see that it's the employer, and they know if they sell to the big company, you know, they're just going to like send the manufacturing to somewhere else. And, you know, just kind of seeing the way all the people were, you know, and that's kind of like in my class where we're talking about Emily in Paris, because I always talk about the thing that everyone was totally kind of like, that had huge value: community, family, heritage. Like all of that was what they wanted, like rather than the other stuff. So I was quite encouraged by that.
And it's an interesting show. I have a lot of friends like who actually are from Paris.
Yeah.
And they say Paris is nothing like what you see in Emily in Paris, you know, in terms of like with the fashion and the views and the restaurant.
I always say that. Of course, I mean, you know, there are elements to us, you know.
Yeah.
But like you see in France, the way that they strike, you know, whenever there's like a 32-hour week or something like that, they go onto the streets, you know, they fight for their rights. And, you know, the idea that, you know, there's all this joke about, they say, I won't be pretentious and speak in French, but, you know, they always sort of say, like, you're going away for 3 weeks, and the answer is only 3, you know?
Yeah.
Like that is like the idea, you always see these kind of like out of office messages, you know, at the end of July, and people are sort of say, like, call me.
That's a really good point. Yeah. People have like lunch breaks for like an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
In America, they bring a sandwich from home, eat in like 10 minutes during a, you know.
Yeah. And there's huge, I mean, if you study business cycles, there's huge examples of like nouvelle cuisine as a kind of a thing was a reaction to the fast foodification. You know, so everyone had to eat food. And then basically the kind of the McDonald'sization of Kentucky Fried Chicken. So then the French reacted with like nouvelle cuisine, and you know that it took one bad thing to kind of make them rethink something. But when they sat down and rethought it, then they were able to come up with something that showed the value of, you know, providence and these kind of things. Okay, so we're kind of we're not quite at the end, but as I say, the 10-minute warning is appropriate. But just so I always start to talk about like influences. You must have heroes and things like that. People are, and some of them you would have met and worked with. But who are the people that you've met that impress you? And I always like people who mention people who helped them along the way. Somebody must have seen your potential and encouraged you to be great.
I think my biggest role model was my dad. He was a surgeon, ear, nose, throat.
Yeah.
And he was so loved by his community. And sometimes he would get patients that couldn't like afford anything, and he would like do a surgery for free.
Yeah.
And he was so kind and compassionate, and he was like such a family man, and he worked really hard. And he was like happy, he was always with like barbecues with his friends and told like amazing stories.
Yeah.
And when he passed away from like a heart attack. They shut down the entire town, and the whole village like carried him to the cemetery on their shoulders, and it was like an amazing moment for me seeing like.
Was it in Germany?
Yeah, it was in Turkey.
Yeah, in Turkey. Yeah,
and he always showed me by example, like how do you make a difference in people's lives. And he did that through his like medical profession, and I'm trying through it with like technology, like touching people.
Yeah. Do you know the actor Jamie Dornan? He was in like 50 Shades of Grey and those kind of movies. But his father was also a surgeon in near Belfast. And Jamie says, like, no matter how famous I will be, I will never be as famous as my father. Because exactly the same story that you told me, because he was the guy who, he actually, I think he was an obstetrician, so he delivered babies, but he was very much a kind of a guy who was, and they say now actually that the younger doctors aren't prepared to be like that, that they specialize and just go for the money, find one operation that you can do really well and then just do that. And then like, that's how you make your money, but they don't have that kind of community element to it, and, some of it is to do also with a lot of medical schools, you enter not, on your exam results, rather than your aptitude for doing it, and then that creates a certain kind of person. So that's really interesting. And I think it's very, very healthy. And what about the rest of your family? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one brother. He's also in California. He works at YouTube.
Okay. Wow.
He's a brilliant engineer. Yeah.
Okay. So there's like two of you, How much does he see your younger brother or your older?
He's older.
Okay. So what does he, I would guess, what does he make of having a more famous younger brother than what does he make of that?
I think like we are like very different in terms of like he really likes his hobbies and interests, and I'm more about like people, like my ideal weekend would be spent, be surrounded with friends, going to a club, and for him it will be really being indulged in something he loves. He did like professional photography. He collects like jazz records, and he's into Star Citizen, like gaming. And
how many times a day do you speak with him? Do you speak with him very, very much?
Not often enough. I try to visit him like once a week.
Yeah. I think that's a very healthy kind of a thing, like was that Wear Sunscreen song? Have you ever heard of that? There was a song that was like Baz Luhrmann did this, like it was based on a column, but he always talked about, and then there was this famous book it's actually the Harvard Happiness Study, and it talked about what makes people happy. And I should send you, before I did they've done this longitudinal study where they've studied people from when they were 12, like all the way up to when they died. I think it's called the Harvard Happiness Problem, and the number one thing is the closeness to the rest of your family is literally the number one thing. It's not money, it's not power, it's not success. It's like how close you are to the rest of your family is the indicator of ultimately how happy you would be,
Well, it's not just family. Also, like with like family, you can't choose who your family is.
Yeah.
But you can pick who your friends are.
Yeah.
And I have like some really incredible like friends I like gathered over the years, and sometimes they're even closer than family to me.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, it's like that making other people, if you're unhappy, the best way to be happy is to do stuff for other people. you know.
Yeah.
But you often, it's a quite, it strikes me as, why doesn't everyone understand this? You know, that
Exactly. What makes us the happiest is volunteering, entertaining friends, like club going, like doing anything that involves people, especially helping, supporting people is what makes us the happiest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was speaking to someone yesterday and he was, tired. And I'm like, you go back to your hotel, like come out and you'll be around people and you'll get energy from people and you'll be happy and you won't feel tired. And I literally said to him, like, I'm coming to your hotel to insist you come out. And then he did, because I guess he knew that I wasn't giving up. But then halfway through the night, I said, well, how do you feel? And he's like, you're right. He said, like, you get energy from people. Like during the summer, I mean, I was at International Women's Day and we was listening to some of the speeches and they were just talking about the differences between men and women. They were saying that one of the things with women is that, like, men don't realize how much it means to be encouraged. Like, women really respond much stronger to be encouraged, and most men are kind of, yeah, whatever. Yes, I'm going to encourage them. But women really need, this is just, they were saying on the panel, that women, for them it's like really important, and that if you're a man managing a woman, it's really important just to sort of like not just assume she knows that you think she does a great job, but that it's really important to do it.
And women are also like a harder time with like social media, because with men, they have their video games, they have their sports, but with women, like they are very skillful with interaction, socialization, right?
Yeah.
And now a lot of the interaction moved to like online, like social media apps, and it's making it so much worse for them because they use it more.
I mean, we're not even talking about like what happens in Asia. There's a South Summit in Korea as well. We were talking a lot with the Koreans and a lot of the pressures that social media has driven on them. I mean, that's perhaps a conversation for another day. I tell all of the people that we must get you to come to all of the South Summits, the ones in Adelaide and the one in, in Korea as well. Just as a final, I always ask everyone just like for like book recommendations or even movies or even kind of, anything that people should be aware of, like as a sort of a takeaway. So is there any book that you would recommend or any documentary or film that you think people should see?
So definitely Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt.
Yes.
Especially if you're a parent, you should definitely read that book.
Yeah.
In terms of like TV shows, I think like Severance is my favorite TV show right now. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure everyone has seen like Ted Lasso by now.
Yeah.
It's very.
I'm surprised you like Severance. No, I'm surprised that like
it's phenomenal.
Really? Why? What do you like about it? Because it doesn't completely fit in. There's a lot of like power dynamic and bitchiness and things like that.
The cinematography is phenomenal, and it's a very creative, interesting story.
Yeah. I think in the end the story wins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are like Severance and Ted Lasso, and Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation. And I'm you probably know Tristan Harris. Do you know? Are you familiar with his work? Because he's another Stanford guy, and he's doing a lot of work on. He's doing a lot of work on kind of like making people aware of like Facebook and that kind of stuff. So he's quite interesting. He's in line with Jonathan. Actually, Jonathan references him a lot. So it's that's very useful. So sadly, we're out of time. I hope you've enjoyed speaking with me as much as I've enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming to Brazil and coming to South Summit. And we hope to see you in Madrid. And best of luck with your new passion project. And may we have less loneliness in the world and more happiness. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Professor Joe Haslam again, just signing off to thank you for listening to the podcast. They're available on Amazon, they're available on Spotify, they're available on Apple, and they're available on iVoox. Please talk to your friends about them. Tell us what you liked and recommend them. We want to get these ideas spread, and they're a very important part of the community we're trying to build here at IE University. So thank you for listening to Venture Ahead.